If you love movies, you're in the right place. And this place here is the Chronicle Film Podcast of the People's Movies. Welcome back. Welcome to episode 54 of the podcast. Myself, Paul, and Clotilde, who are reviewing the worst films. Thank you very much if you've just listened to episode 53, which was the best films. Same again. For the full list, look over at thepeoplesmovies.com under the writers post, which I posted recently. You'll find the full list there. So I'm going to go first again. Clotilde, this choice, I feel really bad putting it on the worst films list. Especially now it's actually happened. It's Spinal Tap then continues, but unfortunately happened to the untimely death of Rob Reiner. You know, very, very tragic. What's actually
Yeah.
happened to, so we won't go for much into it. Obviously, it looks unfortunately as his son is getting the accusation of killing his parents. Other than that, we'll not look in it. I feel really bad that this is a film. It's his last film because I think he had a few other films to come up before he probably
hmm
considered it calling it time on it. Sadly, this one isn't amped up to level 11 because obviously after a lot of legal battles that sort of delayed the release of the sequel, Spinal Tap 2 then continues is, I would say, 40 years too late. Even if the surviving members, I would probably say for a sequel are the right age now. So this one has Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer all returning. Obviously with Rayner, who plays Marty DeBerge. And they're joined in this new version with Paul Schaefer, Fran Drescher, Don Lake, John Michael Higgins, Nina Conte, Griffin Matthews, Kerry Goldman, Chris Addison, and there's cameos for the likes of real musicians, Elton John, Paul McCartney, Questlove, Garth Brooks, Trisha Yearwood. So the boys, Nigel Tufnell, David St. Hubbins, and Derek Smalls, they all have to return for one contractual gig. 41 years after the legendary tour and the legendary albums were released, but it's 15 years since both they've all talked to each other. Nigel, he's living up in Break Upon Tweed selling cheese and guitars. You know, that's quite a funny bit. And Dave, he's living in California, but he's playing with a mariachi band part time, making money, but also making scores for podcasting firms. Clotilde, I think we should get him to rescore this podcast. And Derek, he's living in
Yeah.
Tooting, yeah, he's living in Tooting in London, and he owns a glue museum. Finally, they all come together and they meet in New Orleans, the location where the final show's going to be. And there's only because it's only one venue was wanting to play them, and all thanks to someone pulling out a gig, and that's Stormy Daniels. There is one small problem: they don't have a drummer anymore. So after they do a few auditions, the new drummer comes in the shape of Crockett, who's played by real life drummer Valerie Franco. But the question is, will they actually pull off and deliver a gig amped up to 11? This is Clotilde. Have you actually seen it? Have you actually seen Spinal Tap 2?
No.
No missing much, unfortunately. This one I was dwindling between putting in the disappointing films, folks. In the list I mentioned there earlier, we asked all the writers to write down a few films that they were disappointed if it's the best, ones that surprised them or they think it's been overlooked. I was sort of dwindling, should I put in the disappointing part or the worst films? But as I said in the best section, I was quite struggling this year to make a full list, so I put it in this one. And the original film for 1984, Spinal Tap, that is the ultimate mockumentary. That is the film that all summer films are judged on. And this sequel, Spinal Tap 2, has actually struggled to sort of
hmm
capture any of the old magic. And of course, there was legally none they can actually do. They sort of did in 2003. I don't know if you've seen this one. Have you seen The Mighty Wind?
I haven't seen that either.
No, that's a sort of, it is like a sort of Spinal Tap, but for folk music. And all the guys are in it,
Okay.
and they're all in it in this one. This one, I think, that one delivered, captured some of that magic. It was not bad, not bad. This one sort of is heavily relying on sort of nostalgia, and it's finding little bits. However, it makes you wonder after 4 decades, could you not think of something new? But they also, what makes things worse, they actually rehash a lot of the old jokes. it sort of reminds you why so many people love the original film. I will say this is a missed opportunity where they could have tapped into many themes that current day musicians go through, but what we get is something that's very generic, tripe, and shoehorned with cameos. I gave this, I think it was episode 50 of the Chronicle. I gave this 2 stars. So, Clotilda, what is your first of the worst movies?
It's this movie called Memory of Princess Moonbi. Have you seen it? It's not, I
I
don't think
haven't.
it's very famous.
No, I
I
haven't.
saw it. I feel bad because it's quite independent film, and I always, you like to spotlight independent films when you can, but this one was just really not good. I don't know if it has a UK distributor. I saw it at London Film Festival, but I
Hmm.
think it was at Venice as well. It's just, oh my God, it's not very good. It's a struggle to tell you what the film is about because I think the film is a bit confused. So it's set in 2093 and it's about a filmmaker. And it's a bit weird because you think it's a sci-fi, but it's really not. There's a very introductory sequence where it just tells you everything that happened since then, and it feels really, really long. But then it sort of jumps into like a social film because it's about the filmmaker wanting to make a documentary in a remote village, and it's about a war, but also there was ecological disaster. So then you start thinking maybe it's about social themes, and then kind of out of the blue he meets this Mumbi, and then he changes the film again to make it about her. So is it a love story? And but then he starts telling her like a fantasy story about how she met a prince, but then she actually met the prince. So it becomes a real story. It's a bit messy, and it's clearly there's a bit that takes inspiration from, fantasy in that sense. And then it sort of goes back to being a documentary, but about Moonbi and how she became a princess. It's very confusing. It's not very clear where it's set to begin with, because it doesn't really tell us. There's so much in the film where they talk about AI and using AI in filmmaking that I feel like it was just there to justify that they're using AI in the film. And it's really obvious too. Like you can tell the AI bit from the very beginning. And I feel like they put this bit in the middle and they made him a filmmaker just to say, oh look, it's fine to use AI as long as you say it's AI. That's basically the conclusion that they reach. And it's all very odd. It doesn't really make much sense, and it's just not very well written. It's a shame because, from the premise, I thought it could have been like an interesting sci-fi. But no, there's way too much AI as well. It feels quite jarring at times because you're watching it and you're like, this is clearly not a human expression. They even use At one point they even use AI to like alter somebody's facial expression. And I feel like it's trying to say a lot, about the ecological disaster, about like documentary filmmaking, but it just none of it really lands. It just feels like this sort of blanket statements. And then you're like, okay, I didn't actually it didn't make me think about any of that. So yeah, I just don't really know what the point of this film was, except to, I guess, use AI in a very weird way.
The name doesn't sound familiar. I think I've seen maybe in social media somewhere somebody's maybe put a screenshot on about
Mm,
it. I saw that and I went, I'm not interested. I mean,
exactly.
AI is getting very terrifying. I mean, that thing at Google brought out there earlier in the year, what they can actually do, it's terrifying. Where they make these little 30-second clips where
Yeah,
people are coming up saying these things, saying, "Hi, I'm blah blah blah, I'm AI," and when you look at it and even the voice, I think even there's
yeah,
AI it manipulates your voice now, which is even more terrifying because that can go very sinister. I think at this point,
absolutely.
people are really terrified of how far AI
Yeah.
can go, and that is probably why, regardless if everyone's done in a good faith, until they see some sort of trust in what it can actually do, I think AI is not going to get any good positive reactions from anyone. I mean, there you go, film last year,
Hmm.
the Brutalist. I think it was the voice one. There was a scene in that, I believe. You think it
Yeah.
might the voices of the two lead actors to get them to speak, get them to sound authentically authentic Hungarian, you know, so you
Yeah,
know,
I remember that. I think it's also like not to, it's very concerning, but also the other worrying bit is the like ecological impact of AI and how much, water it's using. And I think nobody's talking about this as much as they should, like the impact on the climate and on nature. And I think for a film that wants to talk about that, going back to Memory Princess movie, for a film that seems to be quite concerned, right, with an ecological disaster and with the climate crisis, to use AI just feels like a bit of a contradiction.
anyway, shall we move on? You're gonna
Yes.
love my next choice because you reviewed it with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you guess what film it is? I'll give you another clue. It's
Oh,
the worst
did
film
I
of the year.
like it?
You liked it better than me. We done it in episode 43. I called it the worst film of 2025.
Oh my God, I don't remember.
Shall I put you in misery? Death of a Unicorn.
Yeah.
Hey!
Oh my God, that of course. Nah, to
Yeah,
be fair, I think it deserves
yep.
to be. It
So
deserves to be in here.
I gave it 0 stars. This is a directorial feature.
0 stars.
Yeah, I think you gave it 3 stars. I think you were a bit more kind at it. Yeah. So this is Alex
I was,
Sharp.
yeah, I was trying.
Yeah, this is Alex Sharpman's directorial debut, and he's worked a lot as a producer in a number of shorts. But he was also a producer in the 2022 crime drama, possibly horror, Resurrection, which starred Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth. He also did he was a producer in House of Spoils for last year, which starred Ariana DeBois. He
Hmm.
produced a film I really liked from the Glasgow Film Festival, and I have reviewed it, just a written review. I think it's on Chronicle Film. It's a little film called Blow the Man Down. It also stars the main star. Well, I don't think she's the main star, but she's the most well known. June Squibb. She's in that. So
Ah, okay.
this mess stars Jenny Ortega, Paul Rudd, their father and daughter, Elliot and Ridley Kittner, and they're heading to the Canadian Rockies to an estate of Elliot's boss, tech billionaire Odell Leopard, played by Richard E. Grant. Driving to their home through the Canadian Rockies, they hit something and they think it's a horse, only to realise it's actually a unicorn. So after a bit of
Hmm.
debating and other things that happen, they decide to put the dead mythical creature in the back of the car and drive to the retreat. So when they get there, a similar amount of time Elliot's boss, Adele, learns he's a unicorn in the back. What we do learn about Odell when we get there, he's seriously ill. And that's sort of one of the reasons why Elliot's there for a potential, I think it's a potential change of job. But he quickly learns the unicorn has regenerative properties and it cures him. Him being a money man, a tech mogul, he wants to exploit the blood for money, unaware the dead unicorn, in inverted commas, is only a baby and its angry parents are looking out for it. Where do I start with this one, Clotilde? This all about grey capitalism, class divide, the destructive tendencies that humanity can be like, when especially in nature itself. It doesn't really matter because this is bad in every level. It's trying to be a B movie slop, but in reality, it's a Z level. I think this makes Tommy Wiseau's Room look like the greatest film ever made. It tries at times to, I think, try to be like a Leslie Nielsen Naked Gun type humour, or even National Lampoon's type humour. But it ends up, I think, it's like getting Nigel Farage up there and telling dad jokes. Absolutely pathetic, this film. Very cliched for the start to finish, also very predictable. And I think it's full of characters who are one dimensional and it's characters you don't really care about. And do you know what? If I remember rightly, actually there was one I did it in the press screen, there was one press who loved this and he couldn't stop laughing. And we all started cheering when the unicorn started killing everyone off. For a horror comedy, there was no tension built. You couldn't really care. You didn't care about anyone, including the so-called good guys. The script itself is criminally bad, and the unicorns themselves, they look like a bunch of junkies wearing
Oh
uniform.
yeah.
Yeah, for Halloween. The CGI is just cheap and nasty. And the DOP for this was Larry Fong, and Larry Fong, the cinematography lacks cohesion, and that's for a guy. who did the cinematography for 300, Watchmen, Super 8, Kong Skull Island. Yeah, they might not be critically great films, all of them, but they're better than this rubbish out of Death of a Unicorn, and it stood out because each of the films I mentioned, things stood out in a more positive way. I would say there was only one redeeming factor in this film. It was Will Poulter, and he played
Oh,
Shepard Leopold.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He played Shepard Leopold, who was Adele's son, and he embraced the absurdity, and he tried to give the humour some sort of, I don't know. He played away the absurdity. He was really good at that. And this was just a cheap, shallow, nasty film. And I think if you're looking for that sort of eat the rich type film, there's plenty out there, better films out there. Even so, the so-called bad films are better than this one, The Death of the Unicorn. Is there anything you want to add to this? Maybe in its defense or anything like that?
No, I think you're right about like the only good thing. It's quite sad, really. I think it could have been a really good idea, which is why it's also quite upsetting that it's. I feel like the kind of premise had some potential, maybe. Also, something I find really odd is that this is A24.
Yeah,
Like it really doesn't feel like the type of film that A24 would do. I don't know. It's a bit jarring. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I do think there could be an audience for it, perhaps. I didn't see it at a press screening. I saw it like in the cinema,
yeah,
and I think people in my screening enjoyed it. I do wonder if they enjoyed it because of how bad it was, or if they
yeah.
actually enjoyed the film, if that makes sense. But I'm glad some people did.
It might find an audience maybe 30, 40 year time as a cult movie. That's the sort of thing is, but no, this is my worst film of this year, 2025. So, Clotilda, what's your next film?
My next one is I don't know if you saw that. It's a movie called Dreams. I think there was more than one movie called Dream this year, to be honest, but this one is the one with Jessica Chastain in it.
No, I haven't. No.
Good for you, honestly. Yeah,
Is that
it's not
bad?
very good. Yeah, I mean, I think it had a lot of potential. I think similar to what we said about Death of a Unicorn, it really could have done something quite cool with it. But it doesn't. It's it's a lot of things. So Jessica Chastain plays this very wealthy woman called Jennifer, and she basically doesn't really have to work for a living, but she works as part of her father's foundation. She sort of like does picks whatever she likes, and she likes ballet, so she has this school in Mexico. She's in the US, but she has this school in Mexico for dancers, and she just sponsors, gives them money and sponsors the ballet there. But she gets into a relationship with one of the dancers there, and at the beginning of the film, he crosses the border illegally to the US to be with her, and she doesn't know this. She seems very worried about him, but eventually she sort of helps him find a job. She has another foundation going on, so she gets him a job as a ballet dancer there, and she has a friend who has ballet company, and he obviously sees his talent and wants to have him in the company, but it's very tricky because he's not legally there, so he can't legally work or get a visa. And I think the first half of the film does a lot of things right. It talks about how sort of wealthy people are only using him for show in a way to show that they care about like the people in Mexico, or the people that are poor and don't have as much access to, especially such a expensive sport or hobby or however you want to call it as ballet. And and it's quite interesting because once they start getting into a relationship where she's from, a lot of people are against it, mostly because he's younger, but also because of his social status, and he's poor and he's from Mexico and all of that. And so I think it really shows the hypocrisy of like it's fine to like give your money, but it's not fine to welcome somebody in your home, and how he's always seen as an outcast because he's Mexican and poor. So I think the sort of class commentary and on the hypocrisy of the richer people is quite, it could have been quite interesting. And then there's a turn in the film about halfway through that I won't spoil if you really must watch the film, which, you'd be fine with that. And I find that quite problematic. We see physically a lot of abuse on screen. And I think a lot of that wasn't necessary to show. It could have been suggested. And it's also how it's shown. I think you can suggest quite a lot in filmmaking, but no, the camera really sits there and It's not just uncomfortable, it's really something that shouldn't be on the screen, I think, at all, not nearly for as long as it is. But I also think what's quite problematic about it is that the whole second half sort of reinforces this idea that Mexican men or South American men are violent and are, bad people. And I don't really don't think we need that in, 2025 in the US with Donald Trump being the president, and I just feel like it doesn't, it's sort of like the whole nuance is just nothing there, and she's not really seen as a bad person. I thought the movie was gonna go in a direction of like, of course she's not like a terrible person, but I thought it was gonna go in more of a direction of like how hypocritical it is and how maybe she doesn't know any better because that's what she's known all her life because her family is also very rich. But I feel like instead it just almost shows her as a victim, not of her own society, as a victim of a situation that I won't go into, and sort of bring her back to the US as if like that's safety, that's her happy ending, and being with her family in the US because that's where she's meant to be. I don't know. I felt like it was very condescending at times, and also just very problematic for the direction that it took. I really didn't like that. So I feel like the interesting elements were completely forgotten and not developed at all. Which is a shame because I do think the performances are quite good, and the whole premise was could have done a lot more. But it really upset me. I do think it's extremely problematic. So I gave it 2.5, mostly because the performances were good, really, and I
Yeah,
did like where the first half was going.
yeah, it's director Michael Franco. His last film before that was Memory with Jessica Chastain and Peter Sarsgaard.
Yes,
I think that's about
it was also controversial, I think.
I think it was to do was it Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. I think Peter Sarsgaard was suffering from it, and then
Hmm.
before that was New Order, which was another controversial film about sort of eat the rich type film. That as well. And then I noticed a few other films. He's done a couple with Tim Roth, Sundown, which came out 2021, 600 Miles, which was another one. And I remember, I didn't realise he did After Lucia, which came out about 2012. I remember that possibly because at the time I worked at the Glasgow Film Theatre, GFT, I think it may have been shown at that cinema. Other films are April's Daughter and Chronic. I've still not watched New Order. I do have it. That came out in movie type thing, you know. And shall I move on to my next movie? Right.
Yes.
So my next movie is another movie I watched at the Glasgow Film Festival. I still think it's waiting for a UK release in some shape or form. I'll be shocked if it does get one and it comes out in the cinema. It's more likely it's going to end up in a digital format or a DVD or straight to a streamer channel. That film is Mr. K. As I said earlier about with the Ballad of Wallace Island and the best section, the great thing about film festivals is a chance to see films, but sometimes I'll never see the light of day on a big screen after the film festival. As I said, they'll only appear just in festivals. An odd one might get a cinema release, others will be digital or DVD release. If I'm going IMDb, Mr. K is Norwegian filmmaker Talua Haskamp Schwab's first film since 2014, and that film she did was a film called Confetti Harvest. Mr. K stars Crispin Glover. He's better known to folks as George McFly for the Back to the Future films. He's Marty McFly's dad. And the American actor is probably the reason why I get attracted to this. And also when I seen a trailer of it, it reminded me as if it was an extension to a Jean-Pierre Jeunet film, no, like Delicatessen or City of the Lost Children. I like that sort of dark element of films. I couldn't attend the press screening because it clashed with the job that I do. I bought a ticket for the public screening, which ended up being a sellout. Sometimes that's a good sign, sometimes that's a bad sign. But it was sold out. Within the first 5 minutes, the person who came up and sat next to me, didn't like the fact that I was taking notes in the film. The audience around me, the people behind me, in front of me, and the other side of me, they didn't. They weren't bothered. So it got to about 25 minutes into the movie. This audience member ran out the cinema, got the festival manager who was in the cinema to drag me out, who told me I shouldn't be. I should have went to the press screening. This woman, this manager, whoever she was very aggressive towards me And when I explained to her I bought a ticket and why I couldn't go to the press screening, she just also asked, why can I not take notes? I've been coming to this festival for 15 years and a lot of them have been public screenings. No one said a problem. So she couldn't answer that and she walked off. The actual staff of the cinema actually apologised to me and said, you've done nothing wrong. And they let me in. So as soon as I walked in, I found my jacket lying in the middle of the stairs for the woman, and the woman saw me coming up, and I walked back into the seat, and she walked out in anger. She was the only person that did it. So that was my right away with that film. I was like, nah, this is not going to work, and didn't work. So Mr. K, Christian Glover, he's the titular character. Mr. K, we don't actually learn what K stand for or anything. We just know him as Mr. K, and he's an old school, old-fashioned travelling magician. He's good at his job, but he seems to be past his prime as well. So when we first meet him, he's in the middle of a show, and it looks like no one's interested. Have you ever seen that French animation? It's actually a French animator. I think he did that Bully Rendezvous, The Illusionist. The animation is set in Edinburgh of all places. It opens up where you see the magician. He's doing his the old trick, getting the bunny out the hat, and it's set in the 1950s, I think. Time that one. This one's actually set in the opening scene remind me of the opening scene of Mr. K, but that's only resemblance that they do have. After the show, he packs up and decides to head to this very strange old decaying hotel and checks in. But he quickly learns that the hotel residents, which I'll describe as being a bit of an oddballs, a bit odd. However, he has a good night's sleep, packs his bag, and heads down the stairs to check out, but he can't check out because he can't get to the exit, the reception. So our man starts to sort of question how he's puzzled to how he cannot find that exit. And the more and more he tries, he finds himself deeper into these labyrinth of corridors that the hotel has. He's very limited his time because he has to move on to his next gig and he's very eager to leave. But a lot of the residents start pulling him in and he's not really interested. In one of the rooms, he's got a couple of really elegant older women's, and one of the women's played by the Irish actress Finola Flanagan. Even the kitchen crew try to drag him in and they force him into work as well. And at times, as he's walking along the corridors, there's this intimidating band troupe which just appear out of nowhere, marching up and down the corridors, being very, very, very annoying. But no one seems to care about actually helping him. And the question is, how long will it be until he actually unravels here? This is a Kafkaesque fantasy, and there's no logic to this madness. Mr. K, I think, is a very befuddled mess here. It really can't decide what it really wants to be, and it asks the question, does the nightmare continue, or does he give up and adapt to the new way of life he seems to be living in? This film will actually test your patience, because the narrative for this is very nebulous. Mr. K actually, about 35 minutes into the film, he actually gives up trying to escape, and then suddenly he wants out again without any sort of reason. And Christian Glover, who plays this character, he has over his time appeared in a lot of smaller films, indie movies. Some are you would consider odd, but I think he feels really miscasted in this film. I was sort of asking myself, and I remember speaking to someone else that saw it, who would be better in it? Names get mentioned, things like Toby Jones, even Nicolas Cage get mentioned here. But the thing is, this is a film, I think, very little budget, so the names that he mentioned, maybe Toby Jones, maybe he could have done it, but Nicolas Cage is a big no-no. I know he does a lot of indie movies. After several decades of shorts, TV films and docs, this is actually the director's second cinematic feature. And next to sort of Juni, there's a lot of Roy Anderson in here, even a bit of David Lynch and Kubrick looked to inspired this film. I don't enjoy being heavily critical of films, especially ones that are one of the early first films of a director. And the film did have a lot of good ideas going for it, but now I think it's lost in the corridors of the actual hotel it's based in. This is an art house movie that can't decide what it wants to be funny or dramatic. I feel it slipped down the wrong rabbit hole here. It is a film that not everyone's actually going to enjoy. I actually gave it 1 star. Have you actually ever even heard of this film, Clotilde?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't think you want to hear it after that because it is absolute te
No.
terrible. So, should we move on to your next movie?
Yes, my next movie is a very small documentary called Henry Fonda for President.
Ah,
And oh God, it's like, I think it's almost 3 hours,
oh,
if not like
jeez.
exactly 3 hours. Yes, exactly. It's 3 hour documentary. It's crazy. It's basically sort of like looking back at Henry Fonda's movies to talk about his life, but in a very uninteresting way. So it's sort of like kind of piecing together different clips of his movies to tell story of who he was in real life. But obviously, there's not much of that. There's some interviews that are intercut through the clips that you see, and it sort of like talks about his obviously his work as an actor, and there's some bits where he talks about his family, and there's a whole part where they talk about how there's a bunch of people that wanted him to run for president, but it's all very confusing.
Yeah,
It's just it really feels like you're looking at one clip after the other and you're trying to make sense of why they've been cut together this way. I think the idea could have been quite interesting in the sense of like looking back at the movies to, I guess, get a picture of the man that he was, but
uh,
it's been done before. I don't know if you've ever seen Rock Hudson's Home Movies. I believe that's the title of the film, which is much more interesting and much shorter. And that's actually quite interesting because it's looking at his roles to see what maybe was hidden. Do you know,
yeah,
like it's sort of like looking not just as his movies, but at what Hollywood was at the time and how he could, come out as a gay man
yeah,
and how, his roles were sort of really the opposite of what you would think, right? Of somebody who's a gay man. And I think that film, has its faults, but it makes sense to me that they've used clips in that sense because that was the whole point. It was proving that he was someone else that wasn't the person we see on screen, but also there might have been some references from time to time. So the use of footage in that one makes more sense. I think in this film, it doesn't. It's just clip after clip. And after you understand what they're trying to do, like making a connection between like the real person and the actor and his roles, it just gets really, really repetitive. And it's way too long. You can't watch that for 3 hours. Yeah, it's just not very entertaining. And I don't know. I kept thinking maybe somebody who's like really, really into Henry Fonda would have liked it, but I don't think so because if you're already familiar with the story and with his movies, it just doesn't seem like this film is adding anything at all. And for people who are not, as much fans of it, I guess, it's not interesting, simply. So yeah, it's quite sad. I just think it's way too long and it's way too confusing about like what it wants to say. It's a bit of a shame because again, I think it's quite an indie production, and it's always sad when, especially those are bad because you do want to spotlight them as much as you can, especially films that you've seen in festivals and don't often have distribution. But it was just not good, so I gave it 2 stars.
2 stars, 2 stars, yeah. Yeah, I have heard of this one. I've heard of this one, but sounds like would it think it would have been better. You say 3 hours, maybe like three mini episodes, for maybe like
Oh yes,
it may have been a
you're right.
better, maybe a better choice to do it that way. May have been a bit
Mm-hmm.
more.
That's a good point.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like it should have been
Bearable.
like that. As in documentaries, I really
Mm-hmm.
want to see. I think it's on Sky or is it Amazon Prime Video. Sorry, is the John Candy one, which has just recently been released or is about to be released. I think it shows
Mm-hmm.
generally how nice a man John Candy was, and how a shame how he died so young. He was somebody. It sounds like he was generally was a nice person, and he was nice on the screen, and a talented guy as well. Shall we move on again? We're getting through these ones really quick as well. Should I go with my next one? I've got two left. I don't know about yourself, Clotilde. You get two left.
Absolutely.
Next one is one by one of your fellow Italians, recently been released. I think it's now on Prime
Oh.
Video. Luca Guadagnino's latest film, After the Hunt.
Oh, After the Hunt.
Yeah, have you seen it?
Yes, surprisingly, because I think I'm not a Luca Guadagnino's fan.
Yeah.
I surprisingly like this. I think it's because I didn't like his previous films, so
Yeah.
I went in with very, very low expectations.
Yeah, I hadn't really much of a clue what it was about, but it was part of the press screening that I was at, and I thought, why not? I'll sit down. I can't remember what the film I saw before it, but This just felt like it dragged. So this one stars Julia Roberts, Andrew Garfield, Ayo Idabire, Chloe Sevigny, and Michael Stuhlberg or Schulberg. After the Hunt, it's described as a gripping psychological drama about a college professor, Alma Olsen, who's played by Julia Roberts, who finds herself at a personal professional crossroads when a star student, Maggie, who's played by Ida Beery, who just adores and worships the ground that she walks on. And basically, they have a house party at Alma's home with her husband, is Michael Stuhlberg, who plays the husband. And Maggie's there, and Alma's colleague Hank, who's played by Andrew Garfield, is there as well. You know, it's like an open scene for a Woody Allen film. It feels so out of place. The music's good. The music's good in it as well. It's what do you call them? The guys for Nine Inch Nails, the Oscar-winning guys, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, do the score for us. Outside, the rain's gone and the party's starting to break up, and Hank offers to walk Maggie home to her home. And then the following day, she makes an accusation against Hank, and that accusation opens a Pandora's box and a dark secret from Alma's past friends to come out. First of all, it's very obvious when you see the chemistry between Alma and Hank that the two of them have had an affair in the past or still are having an affair, and Alma's husband probably knows about it as well. Hank, he's probably our biggest friend there, but he's also the competition at work for a lot of stuff. I wonder, Clotilde, see if this film was released a few years ago. I wonder if it actually would have garnered some more plaudits because it's also there's
Hmm.
a lot of the Me Too and cancer culture themes are in there. I think it wouldn't have made a difference because this is not really a good film because it really doesn't tackle the message, and I think it actually deliberately holds back in the answers because I think Guardino's
Yeah,
trying to make you think what the answer is, leaving things very subjective when it
I
comes
think
to the
so.
truth in the name of self-interest. What did you think of it?
I agree with that. What you said, I think he does sort of want you to make up your mind about it without telling you like the answer.
Yeah,
Which is something I found quite fascinating because I think a lot of other films or directors would have maybe done a flashback to the kind of key pivotal point the characters talk about. And I really like that he didn't do it. I thought it was quite interesting because it sort of keeps you thinking until the end and sort of making up your own mind based on what the characters say, which is the same position Julius Roberts' character is in, or any character really, that are not the two involved. And I quite like that. And I agree, I do agree with you. I think it's interesting to think maybe a few years ago would have had more momentum, if that's the right word.
yeah,
But I really like the acting in it. I thought it was quite successful. I do understand it's a really sort of maybe complicated film to watch. There's a lot of dialogue that is
yeah,
so kind of philosophical because they talk about what they're studying or researching.
yeah.
And I do think it's really hard to follow, but a part of me thinks like that's not the point. I think it's more about showing you what that environment looks like and how, dynamics work within it. I think if you see it as more as that, then I don't know, as a thriller or as a Me Too film, as many people have said,
Mm.
I think maybe you would appreciate it a bit more. But
When it comes to the truth, I think a lot of it was done in the name of the sort of subjective side of the main of self-interest. There's no likable characters really in this film, and I think the closest to any sort of likable characters, the two of them are underused. That was Spielberg and Sevigny's parts. Sevigny, I think she like the counsellor, I think, or something for the university, it's Yale University, but I believe it was actually filmed in London rather than Yale itself. Yeah, the this is a drama that doesn't have any but show support side to any potential victims of the abuse. It doesn't even show some sort of mutual respect. Gives you the idea that everyone is a prime suspect, but also everyone is would you say a victim as well. And for Maggie, when things don't get her way, you get to see the ugly side of her because we learn that Maggie's dad is one of the big, he's a millionaire and he's one of the big donors to the university. So Alma, who's sort of thrown into the centre of this accusation, she doesn't know which way to go. You know, she respects Hank, and obviously she might have had an affair with him, but she also respects Maggie, who is also a student, and she's also got the university in her back. If she goes for Hank's side, it could be the end for the university, and they could lose all their money. I think After Hunt's a very self-pretentious psychodrama, and it's nowhere close to. Some people are calling this a thriller, what it claims to be. I don't think it is. I think it's more interested in how one is perceived in the public and the sort of self-interest. And I think they leave the film's ambiguity right straight into a dead end. So, and the thing, this is a 2.5 hour film. It's very slow and dull fast, very self-loathing, as you said, a very solid cast, but I think they're wasted start to finish. As I mentioned, some of them are underused, but I also think that character is very undeveloped. They really just sort of scratch the surface, and it sort of leaves you the characters, especially Maggie's, being very stereotypical. And I think now, even though it still unfortunately still happens, not just in universities, unfortunately around anywhere, everywhere, these things still happen, but the actual themes, as in the Me Too and the cancel culture, the themes have sort of changed now with how the political climate of the world is. To some people, woke's a very nasty word. Cancel's a very nasty word with people. Others, they support it, you know, and they believe everything that it's meant to be. I think sometimes the film's a little dig at the same time, into that cancel culture. I don't know if you think what you think of that, Clotilda.
I think I don't know. I think it's a film that when because I watched it a long time before it came out. I think
Yeah.
to the general public. I don't remember what that was. I think it was in October,
Yeah, I think I've
and I
so
think there was a lot of. I think a lot of. I don't know. The buzz is not the right word, but there was kind
yeah,
of a lot of buzz around it,
yeah,
and I think a lot of people like when I saw it, there was no trailer even, and I think a lot of people were sort of to me who I had already seen the film by then, but it felt like a lot of people were kind of wanting it to be something that it wasn't. And I don't know if that's
uh,
because of like, like you said, the cultural moment or the plot, or maybe like the marketing itself, um, which I think, played a huge part in it.
yeah,
But I think that's why, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that a lot of people that watched it and when general release happened didn't
yeah,
like it, and a lot of people that watched it before did. I don't know. I don't know if there's something about that or there's something to say. I think what you said earlier was quite interesting
yeah,
about like when the film was released or written. I also think
yeah,
it's quite interesting that Luca Guadagnino didn't write this film, and I think most of his previous projects he wrote, right?
yeah,
So I don't know if maybe that plays a part into it. Because to me this didn't feel like a Luca Guadagnino film, and I think that's why
yeah,
a lot of people maybe that are fans of him didn't like it. And I do wonder if that has to do with the writing because it's somebody else that wrote it and he's just directing it. I think you can see the difference there. And maybe, that has an effect in the final film. And again, with the expectation thing I was saying, it's really to me it's really not a Guadagnino film. I don't know
yeah.
if you have seen like a lot of his filmography, but it just doesn't seem like I don't know the type of film I like associate with him.
Yeah, I have seen quite a few of his movies. I think before that was the cannibal one, no, with Timothy Chalamet. It was
Ah, yes,
I've seen that one,
Bones and all.
Bones and All, and then what do they call it, the Giallo
Mm.
remake he did. I've seen that one. The Suspiria, the the one that's about 2 hours longer than the original movie.
Yes,
Yeah, I've seen that one,
it
and
is.
yeah, and the two of them are completely different movies. More the Timothée Chalamet one. That's his type of movie. I think that he sort of excels at. Challengers, his last movie I've seen as well. I don't know if it was us. Was that done in the podcast? We might have done it in the podcast. That
Hmm.
I don't. I think that might have been written by someone else as well. I'm not 100% sure in that. But yeah,
Maybe yes.
a lot of them are hit and miss with me. I mean, this is I call you can call this an academic drama thriller, and it's obviously shrouded in the sort of cancel cultures, you know. But if I was to say to someone a better movie, but it goes with the themes of the cancel culture, I would recommend the film that came out a few years ago
Hmm.
with Kate Blanchett, Tar. I reviewed it on the website a few years ago.
I
I think
still haven't seen it.
I believe I it might be one of the early movies that may have reviewed on this podcast. I believe that's a far better movie than this. It's a stronger movie. It's got a more straightforward story. You know the score. You learn about Kate Blanchett's character, what she's like, her private life as well. It builds up the character, and it's roughly the same length of time as the film, but it's a far better film. I I watched this in a press screening. I didn't obviously get a chance to actually review it, but I am giving this 2 stars. So, Clotilde, do you have any more reviews to do for your worst films?
Yes, there's one more film I really didn't like. I feel like these are all from festivals, which is quite sad. But this one's called Mirrors Number Three. I think it's yeah, I really don't think anybody has heard of it. And when I saw it, there were like 5 people in the room, which is yeah, tells you something really. Um, but it's about so at the beginning, the main character, her name is Laura. She goes to the countryside for a trip with some friends and her boyfriend. But she doesn't feel right and she has to drive back. So her boyfriend drives her back and everybody else sort of stays where they were. And during the drive back and the drive there as well, they keep seeing this strange woman looking at them as they drive. But during the drive by, they see her. And after that, they get into like this massive car accident and he dies straight away. And this is where gets a bit odd because like no, not, we don't know what happened to him. Like nobody calls emergency services straight away. This strange woman sort of takes her in and then calls like the paramedics and they're like, she's absolutely fine. Like nothing happened to her. But nobody really talks about him. It's very odd. And and this woman starts looking after her. She's like, you can stay here. And for some reason, Laura doesn't want to go back home and she just stays there. And she seems to like not care. She never mentions like her boyfriend who died just now, just then. And I thought it was going into a different direction, maybe. I thought it was sort of like going to explore her trauma after. Maybe she was like avoiding it or something. And but no, it's very odd. They just sort of like move on and never touch on that again. And then you sort of find out she bonds with the rest of the family, like this woman's husband and her son. But the other, she's very affectionate, but her husband and son are a bit colder towards her, and then you find out that they had a daughter who kind of had was the same age as her and looked like her, and lived in that room where she's staying now. And so there's a whole thing about maybe she's trying to replace her. She passed away recently, and as a sort of the idea doesn't sound too bad when you say it like that, but the film is just really boring because once you find out what's happening, it's just it sort of doesn't really go anywhere from there. And you do wonder like what the film was really meant to be on because at one point she leaves and you're like I really struggle to understand like what kind of film it was to begin with because there's an eerie element to it and it seems all very strange at first. And then you're like maybe it's about trauma and then maybe it's about like these people who are treating her like family and it's just I'm not sure still what the film was about. Um, yeah, it was just all very confusing. I didn't really get where it was set specifically. It was just like a random countryside as well. It just seems, I don't know, if you start thinking about it, the more you think about it, the more the plot doesn't hold up. Like, does she not have any friends that checked on her, any family? It's just all very weird. And yeah, still don't understand what kind of like the point of it all was. I remember leaving the cinema. I was very confused. When I left, I really struggled to understand what we were talking about. But I don't know, maybe it was me.
So, what's the name of the film again?
It's called Mirrors Number Three.
That sounds like a movie type movie. So there's a good chance of be on that. So
Yeah,
what rating would you have
that's
given it?
true actually. I gave it 2.5 because the performances were quite good, I have to say. And again, like the first maybe half an hour, I was quite intrigued and I was trying to figure out what was going on. And I just, at one point, I kind of gave up.
Okay, I have one final film of the worst films of 2025. This one I was originally going to do is a take two. However, the film's just recently been released, and that film's A Housemaid. Clotilde, have you seen this film?
I have. I actually quite enjoyed it, personally.
Do you enjoy it that much? It would be on your best films list.
No, not best films.
Middle of the road. Middle of the road. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, how might the how the mighty have fallen? Paul Feig was a filmmaker I had time for at one point. I mean, he gave us Bridesmaids. That was a great film. The Heat, which the buddy cop comedy with Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy. A Simple Favor, which I enjoyed more than expected. No, especially because it had the blend of noir, mystery, and suburbia, and a lot of sexiness in there. The with the good, the bad always follows. As also we're doing this list. You get Last Christmas, Another Simple Favor, and then this one, The Housemaid. People, they do enjoy films that are so bad or so good. This is so bad, it's so dreadful. That's how much I thought of this. I don't know if it's anything to do. I watched it in the last press screening earlier this month, and because of my work, I missed the first movie. I get in right at the end of the first movie, which is Marty Supreme, which sounds like a far better movie. In this book, The Housemaid, this film, The Housemaid, is based in a book of the same name. It's a series of books written by Frida McFadden. This film stars Sydney Sweeney, who is described as a resourceful Millie Calloway, who is also the main character in the book series as well. And we first meet her, and she's talking away to herself, and she's driving an old banger of a car, but she's looking smart, and we quickly learn that she's going to an interview, so she's sort of practicing in the car, and she's going up to an upmarket mansion home of the Winchesters, which I believe is in Long Island. I don't know if that's in New York State or New Jersey State. And she meets Nina, who's played by Amanda Seyfried. And she greets her with open arms. She's so happy to see Millie. Everyone looks to have went well. She has the interview, gives her the tour around the house. Everyone looks well. And that's point as she leaves, we quickly learn how Millie actually lives, and we find out she's actually living out of her car, and she's washing herself at the garages and in the shop bathrooms. It's occasionally taking sort of one of these one-off jobs where it's sort of cash in hand. They're occasionally eating food for the garages she sleeps by, and she sleeps in the car park and hoping that no police or something go past and ask her to move on. And this one, the police move her on, but at this point, Nina actually calls Millie to tell her she's got a job, and she asks when she can start, and she says, "I'm heading right to them right now," because part of the job she actually be living with, it's an unliving job, and she'll be living in the attic room, but it's a really weird room because the room, if I remember right, locked from outside. Is that right, Clotilda? It's from the outside, the attic room.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the first time in a long time that she's slept in a proper bed. So on her first day, she actually sleeps in, and quickly she feels the wrath of Nina's volatile behaviour, and she starts accusing Amelia of something that she didn't do. But obviously, she's not wanting to lose her job. She takes the abuse and doesn't argue with her, despite that actual abuse. That night, she meets the manor house at Andrew Winchester, which is played by Brendan Skellner, who says when Nina tells him all about what happened, he turns to Mel and says, "Leave it to me, everything's fine." Millie doesn't obviously just clean, she cooks, but she also has access to the family car, where she's the taxi service to their daughter, Cecilia, played by Indiana Ellie. She takes her to a ballet class, and I'll be honest, as you'll know as well, Clotilda, we do learn that Cecilia isn't a great ballet dancer. Quickly,
Mhm.
Nina's behaviour goes into overdrive because to a point, she's pushing her husband and daughter away, and it's no surprise. We quickly learn that Nina, at one point in her life, was actually institutionalized. You do sort of start to learn a little bit about that in the flashbacks later on in the film. Andrew and Millie, no surprise again. They both of them are having an affair. This is not the only dark hidden secret. It's within the walls of the Winchester home. Millie is actually being to jail. So this is too predictable. Of course, if you have read the book, you know what's going to be happening. Clotilde, have you actually read the book, or have you just obviously just seen the films?
No, I've just seen the film. I really want to see the book. I heard there's some differences as well.
Yeah, there is apparently there is differences, and as what they are, I couldn't really tell you. The twist, there is a twist in this film, and not going to spoil it. Well, I wish I really should spoil it because it's so terrible. It doesn't surprise you when it comes across.
Mm.
You know what it's like? See if someone was walking along a street and you're hiding in the corner and say top of a wall, you better jump out and surprise them. As soon as that person gets to that point, you sort of drop off and thud. That's where his light go. And the person you're trying to surprise looks go, what was that meant to be? You know, that type of thing. There's no tension to this, and it doesn't really build anything up, and everything feels so undeveloped in it. And like any film, which is sort of partnerships between the main characters, it needs chemistry to what this is none at all, especially between Sweeney and Seaford. And the fans of the book will be really disappointed with Sweeney's performance because Millie's very bland, and I believe in the books she's a more of a feisty character. And for a yeah, for a say anything else, Clotilda, here's your chance to defend the movie. You want to say a little bit about
I will I will defend it.
it?
I really didn't think it was predictable. I hadn't seen much. I think I had seen like maybe the teaser trailer before I
Yeah.
watched it. But yeah, it really did shock me. At the halfway sort of point, I really enjoyed that twist.
Yes.
And I think it was very packed. It was very tight. Like the pacing was very good for me, especially in the second half. Once things get going, it's really good. That the way, I was really at the edge of my seat. There's a scene towards the end where I was like literally at the edge of my seat, to see how it would end. I mean, I had some ideas, but I think the whole sort of reveal is done quite well. And when you see the perspective from both women, I quite like that and the sort of way they mirror each other. I enjoy that a lot. And the way it begins with, I forgot the character's name, but Sydney Sweeney's narration. And then I like that we also get the counterpart to that with Amanda Seyfried's character's narration. I thought that was quite fun and quite clever to show both of their reactions. But also the acting I thought was quite good. I know I talked about Amanda Seyfried already, but she's really having a good year. So is Sydney Sweeney, acting wise, not other things.
Yeah.
But yeah, all three main characters I thought were excellent. I think they're all very layered. They all have this different sides to them. Like they all seem quite nice at first and then have a sort of deeper story, I guess, and real identity. And I thought that was done quite well from the acting point of view. They switched quite easily and it was very cool to see. I do think that, it has some faults, obviously. I think is it Michele Morone, the Italian guy?
Yeah.
His character is criminally underused. He's
Yeah.
just there and then he's not. Like, what's happening? That was a bit odd, I thought. I don't know if the book is different. I'd be interested to read that. I don't know if they just added it. It feels to me like it was just added for the movie because he doesn't really have any, actual use in the
Yeah.
plot. Um, so that was a bit weird, I think. And so yeah, in that sense, there was a bit that was quite wonky, and I was like, "Why? What's happening to him?" But other than that, I quite liked it. I think the kid was quite good. I know we don't see her that much, but she's very key to the storyline,
Yeah.
and I thought that was good. And the way his family's perceived around town. I also think they did a really good job at showing that and with the sort of gossiping moms. That was quite cool.
Yeah.
It made me laugh. I think for such a tense film, I thought it was very quite stressful at times, even as a thriller. It was also very fun. I saw it in like a big, with a big audience in a press screening, and there were moments when everybody was laughing out loud and reacting out loud, and I quite enjoy that. I think it shows that, the film really got people quite involved in the story. And I do have to say, it's doing quite well in the sense of getting people to the cinema.
Yeah.
It seems like our book clubs are going to see it, and the marketing is quite good in that sense. I do have to also appreciate that it's it's very good whenever films can get people back in the cinema, especially at this time of the year. Must have been quite tricky because it came out this month, I think, at least in the UK. So I think that's also pretty cool, and I think people are still talking about it, even if it came out, I want to say, like at the beginning of the month.
No, it was
So
actually even closer. It was Boxing Day, 26.
oh, it was Boxing Day.
Oh,
I made
sorry,
that up.
no,
Okay.
or maybe even the week before, but it's very recent.
hmm Okay. Oh, that explains because I was like, why are people still talking about it? I think because I watched it quite earlier on, in December. But yeah, it seems to me that a lot of people are going to see it. It's like a sort of group thing. And it's probably just capitalizing on the book's success, but it's doing that quite well too.
I feel that The Housemaid feels a bit of a parody of films it wants to be. I think it wants to be up there with the sort of dark thrillers, no like David Fincher's Gone Girl, but it feels more like
Mm-hmm.
one of the rubbish films that you find in the bottom of the pound bargain basement bins that no one really wants. No, what it reminds me? It reminds me of the laughable bad erotic thrillers you used to get in the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
One especially is Body of Evidence, the one that had Madonna and William Dafoe in it. It makes that look like a masterpiece, you know. I think this might have been more of a straight to DVD or a digital release rather than a cinema release. I know
Mm-hmm.
not all successful book series should be adapted for the big or even the small screen. But I think if they're going to do it, they should just get a filmmaker who can actually deliver because Paul Feig's quality of films is sliding fastly down a slope, especially his recent ones. What I will say in its defence, fans of the Housemaid book might enjoy it, the trashy side of it, because it's a trashy, cheesy type film. For the ladies, there is a lot of eye candy in there. It obviously comes through Brendan Skellner, who seems to walk about either shirtless or in his vest. If
That's true.
yeah, if the ladies are there, obviously some might say Sydney Sweeney, uh, maybe eye candy for the guys, you know. However, I think especially the first part, right up to when everything sort of changes, I found that it dragged. The pace was really dragging. It's a bit of a slow burner, and it got too repetitive at times. By the time the actual plot actually kicks in, and at that point we lost interest. I think it was a missed opportunity here. So before I give my rating, it's going to be bad. What were you giving your rating in this film?
I gave it 4 stars.
4 stars. I think
Yeah,
Scott who reviewed it for the website, I think he gave it 4 stars. I gave it one
I
star.
think so.
Yeah.
1 star.
Yep.
Wow.
So it's the film that's just above Death of a Unicorn in my worst films list. Clotilda,
hmm
do you have any films yourself you like to any other final films is that you for this year?
I think that was it for me. There's been a few films I didn't like, but I think we covered the really bad ones that I would absolutely not recommend. Um, and
Yeah,
they we covered the really good ones.
yeah, we did. So folks, once again, as I said about the best films, head over to thepeoplesmovies.com where you get the best and worst films from the writers at the People's Movies, including myself and Clotilda. That's where you'll find our full list. And there you have it, folks. And that's your up, folks. That was your episode 53 and 54 of the Chronicle. Thank you very much for listening in. Clotilda, thank you very much for joining us. Would you like to let the
Thank
listeners
you.
know you're welcome? would you like to let the listeners know where they can find you on social media and what websites you might find your ratings on?
Yes, my Twitter is at Films with Chloe. I don't use it as much, but still there. Follow me. My Instagram is at the perks of being Chloe, and I think that's pretty much all I use these days, uh, as social media goes. But yes, I write for the People's Movies, of course, Loud and Clear Reviews, Film Hunt magazine, and Movie Marker.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much for myself, the People's Movies and the Chronicle and the Chronicles and Film. You will find us at Facebook at the People's Movie, at X at the People's Movie as well. Instagram are over at the People's Movies. Over at YouTube, you can find us there at thepeoplesmovies.com. We are getting some fantastic interviews over there as well. You'll also find my previous take two there. That is Wake Up Dead Man and Ice Out Mystery. It's only on YouTube, that one. I will try and get it onto the other social medias, but head over there if you want to listen to my views on that. We're also on Patreon. The link we'll find over at thepeoplesmovies.com. The link's over there. You can show your support. You can also show your support over at Buy Me a Coffee and at PayPal. Once again, the links are over at the People's Movies website. You will find the episodes, these two episodes, if not on the website, over at Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, Castbox, to name a few. Sometimes we'll continue to chat over at the Chronicle Take 2. You can find it when that is happening on social media and also at the website for future episodes. Also, do sign up for our email newsletter, which keeps you up to date on reviews and things that we're doing. And also here at the website, the podcast as well. Sign up for that. The link's at the website. Other than that, Clotilde, thank you very much. Just about to touch into a new year, 2026. I wish you a happy new year. Wish you all the
Yes,
success. Thank you
Happy New
very
Year.
and happy new year. And to you listeners, I wish you a happy 2026. We have a lot of things that we're hopefully going to plan to do at the website and here at the podcast. Sometimes I might not be the co-host. There might be other people join us. Clotilde may join us and the other guys that you heard as well. Other than
Oh,
that,
I will.
you're welcome. Thank you for joining me. Until the next time, enjoy the movies.